Welcome everyone to Translation Theory and Practice. I'm Dr. Muhammad Alwishi, and over the next 3 hours, we will explore the fascinating world of translation together. This course will equip you with both theoretical knowledge and the practical skills to become effective translators. Course outline introducing to translation theory and practice. Introduction to translation theory and practice, defining translation key perspectives, types of translation, characteristics of good translation, qualities of an effective translator, common challenges in translation, translation methods and strategies, translation as intellect in intercultural communication, translation in practice, exercises overview, translation process step by step, tools and sources for translators, ethical and professional considerations, case study, literary translation, case study, technical and business translation, emerging trends in translation, then summary and reflection. Learning objectives, master fundamental concepts and defining in translation theory, exploring how scholars have conceptualized in the translation process throughout history, recognize and distinguish between different types and methods of translation from literal to communicative approaches, examine characteristics of good translations, and I identify qualities that make translators effective in their craft, both theoretical understanding into practice through hands-on translation exercises across various text types and genres. Learning outcomes, articulate comprehensive definitions of translation and explain its crucial role in intercultural communication, global commerce, and knowledge discrimination. Dissemination. Differentiate between free, literal, and communicative translation approaches, understanding when each is appropriate and what trade-offs each involves. Critically assess translations using criteria of accuracy, clarity, and naturalness, developing an informed eye for what makes translations succeed, of complete translation assignments that showcase your ability to navigate linguistic and cultural challenges while maintaining fidelity and fluency. Engage thoughtfully with cultural, ethical, and methodological questions that shape contemporary translation practice and theory. Now let's move to Introduction to Translation Theory and Practice. Translation stands as one of humanity's oldest intellectual activities, dating back thousands and thousands of years to when multilingual scribes first renders text between um, Sumerian and Akkadian. Yet translation remains vibrantly contemporary, evolves constantly as language change, technologies advance, and the cultures interact in increasingly complex ways. This duality, ancient practice and modern profession, makes translation studies a uniquely rich field of inquiry. Translation as a process and product. When we speak of translation, we refer simultaneously to two related phenomena. First, translation is a process that cognitive, linguistic, and cultural work a translator performs when rendering meaning from one language to another. This process involves analysis, decision making, problem solving, and creative adaptation. Second, translation is a product, the resulting text that readers encounter, which carries meaning across linguistic boundaries. Understanding both dimensions is essential. Process oriented study helps us become better translators by illuminating how skilled practitioners' work. Product-oriented analysis helps us evaluate translations and understand their effects on readers and cultures. The interdisciplinary nature of translation studies draws from linguistics, literature, cultural studies, philosophy, and communication theory. This breadth reflects translation's centrality to human civilization. Every time knowledge, art, commerce, or diplomacy crosses language boundaries, translation makes it possible in our globalized world. Translation has become more vital than ever, facilitating international businesses, scientific collaboration, literary exchange, and diplomatic relations. Global communication translation enables international dialogue, allowing ideas and information to flow across linguistic barriers in diplomacy, journalism, and everyday interaction. Economics change from product documentation to marketing campaigns. Translation drives international commerce and enables business to reach global markets. Cultural transmission, literary translation brings world literature to new audiences, enriching cultures, and fostering cross-cultural understanding and appreciation. As you process through this guide, remember that translation theory without practice remains abstract, while practice without theory lacks depth and insight. The most effective translators integrate both dimensions, applying critical understanding to inform practical choices while allowing practical experience to test and refine theoretical principles. Defining translation key perspectives. How we define translation shapes how we understand and practice it. Over decades of translation studies, scholarship theorists have proposed various definitions, each highlighting different aspects of the translation act. These definitions aren't contradictory, rather, they eliminate translation from complementary angles, revealing its multifaceted nature. Uh, Eugene Zeneda, functional definition. Eugene Zeneda, a pioneering translation theorist, known for his work in Bible translation, defined translation as reproducing in the receptor language the closest natural equivalent of the source language message, first in term meaning, and secondly in terms of style. This definition emphasizes equivalence and naturalness. The translator's dual responsibility to preserve the original message while ensuring the translation reads smoothly in the target language. Neda's approach acknowledges that translation isn't a mechanical substitution, but rather a sophisticated process of defining the closest function equivalent. When cultures differ significantly, this may require substantial adaptation to achieve equivalent effect on target readers. Catford's linguistic definitions, J.C. Catford, approaching translation from a linguistic perspective, offered a more technical definition. The replacement of textual material is one language SL by equivalent textual materials in another language TL. This definition foregrounds the linguistic dimensions of translation, viewing it primarily as a text-based operation between language systems. Catford's definition helps us focus on the formal linguistic challenges translation presents, grammatical structure that do not align, lexical gaps where one language lacks words for concepts the other expresses, and syntactic patterns that resist direct transfer. While more technical than NIDA's definition, it captures important aspects of translation as linguistic problem solving. Now let's go to Jackson. tripartite categories. Roman Jobson expanded our understanding by identifying three distinct types of translation: interlingual translation, translation proper between different languages, intralingual translation, rewording or paraphrasing within in the same language, and intersemotic translation, translating between different science systems, such as adapting a novel into tell. Jackson's taxonomy reveals that translation encompasses a broader range of meaning transfer activities than we might initially assume. His framework helps us recognize similarities between seemingly different activities: translating German to English, modernizing Shakespeare's language, and adapting a book for the screen all involve analogies, process of interpretation and re-expression. These definitions collectively reveal translation's complexity and nuance. Translation involves linguistic transfer, but isn't purely linguistic. It requires equivalence, but must define what counts as equivalent. It transfers meaning, but must interpret what that meaning is. As you develop as a translator, you'll find yourself drawing on insight from all these perspectives, recognizing that translation theory offers multiple lenses through which to view and understand your practice. Types of translation: just as there are multiple ways to define translation, there are multiple approaches to performing it. The type of translation you choose depends on your text purpose and audience. Understanding these types helps you make informed strategic decisions rather than defaulting to single or a single approach regardless of context. Then let's go for free translation. Prioritizes conveying general meaning and effect over word for word correspondence. The translator has flexibility to restructure, add explanatory information, or adapt cultural references to ensure comprehension and impact, common in literary translation and marketing. Literal translation maintain close correspondence to source text structure and wording, translating word for word or phrase by phrase where possible, useful for technical or legal texts where precision is paramount, but risks of awkwardness or misinterpretation of idiomatic expressions. Communicative translation focuses on reproducing the contextual meaning and achieving the same foundation or the same communicative effect on target readers as the original had on source readers, balances fidelity with readability, adapting as needed for cultural context and audience understanding. Choosing your approach. No single type is universally superior. Context determines appropriateness. Legal contracts may require literal precision. Advertising slogans need free adaptation. Use manuals benefit from communicative clarity. Expert translators flexibly shift between approaches even within a single project, applying the strategy each segment demands. Understanding these types as tools in your translator's toolkit rather than rigid categories or competing philosophies allows you to make a strategic decision that serves you, text, and readers. The question isn't which type is best, but rather which process best serves this particular translation challenge. Characteristics of a good translation: what separates excellent translations from merely adequate ones? While translation quality can seem subjective, professional translators and translation scholars have identified core characteristics that distinguish high quality work. These characteristics provide concrete criteria for evaluating translations and standards to guide your practice. Accuracy, faithful conveyance of the original meaning without addition, commissions, or distractions. An accurate translation represents the source text content honestly. Preserving factual information, authorial intent, and semantic nuances. This doesn't mean mechanical word for word. Rendering accuracy operates at the level of meaning, not just words. Achieving accuracy requires deep comprehension of the source text, including implied meanings, culture assumptions, and contextual references that may be explicitly stated. You must understand not just what the text says, but what it means. Clarity, ambiguous, and readily understandable text that communicates effectively to target readers. A clear translation doesn't have readers confused about meaning or struggling to parse convoluted sentences, even when the source text is complex. The translation should be as clear as the genre and the register allow. Uh, Clarity sometimes requires departing from source text structure. If a German sentence with nested subordinate clauses would be unclear in English, restructuring it increases rather than decreases translation quality. Clarity serves accuracy by ensuring the meaning actually researches or reaches the reader. Naturalness, text that reads as if originally written in the target language, conforming to its conventions, idioms, and stylistic norms. Natural translations do not feel translated, they exhibit the rhythm, word choice, and the structural patterns native speakers expect. This characteristic distinguishes professional translation from mechanical or student work. Naturalness doesn't mean domestically away all cultural differences, but it does mean expressing ideas in ways that feel authentic to target language. A natural Spanish translation uses Spanish grammar and idioms. A natural Japanese translation follows Japanese discourse conventions. The fidelity, fluency, balance. These three characteristics relate to a fundamental tension in translation, the balance between fidelity, loyalty to the source text, and the fluency, naturalness in the target language. Absolute fidelity can produce awkward, unreadable translations. Absolute fluency can stay far from the original meaning. Expert translation navigate this tension by recognizing that different text and context call for different points along the fidelity fluency spectrum. Legal documents typically require fidelity learning translation that preserve specific technology and structure marketing materials typically need fluency learning translation that prioritize impact on target audiences. Now let's go to quality is contextual. A good translation of a poem may prioritize aesthetic effects or effect over literal accuracy, while a good translation of medieval device manual must prioritize precision over stylistic elegance. I'll always ask what does this text need to do for its readers? Qualities of an effective translator. Great translations do not happen by accident. Today result from translators processing specific qualities, skills, and habits. While some people have natural aptitude for languages, effective translation requires cultivated abilities that go beyond basic bilingualism. Understanding what makes translators successful helps you develop these qualities intentionally. Passion and commitment. Effective translators care deeply about quality and take pride in their work. The passion or this passion motivates the meticulous attention to detailed translation demands, checking references, refining word choices, and revisiting until the translation truly works. Without genuine commitment, it's easy to settle for good enough rather than pushing for excellence. A strong linguistic competence, deep knowledge of both source and target language is foundational. This goes beyond conversational ability to include understanding of grammar, syntax, stylistics, register, and cultural context. You must recognize subtle distinctions between synonyms, formal and informal gestures, regional variations that impact translation choices. Curiosity and learning mindset. Language evolves evolve constantly, and translation involves endless specialized domains. Effective translators embrace continuous learning, remaining curious about words, cultures, and subjects. They read widely, stay current with language changes, and approach each new text as an opportunity to expand their knowledge. Rich vocabulary. A broad-nosed vocabulary in both languages enables precise expression. Effective translators do not just know common words, they comment synonyms with subtle distinctions, technical terminology for various fields, idiomatic expressions, and colloquialisms. They active work they actively work to expand their vocabulary through reading and study. Domain-specific knowledge, while general purposes translators exist, specialization increasingly characterizes the profession. Effectively, translators develop expertise in specific domains: legal translation, medical translation, literary translation, technical writing, allowing them to understand sources text deeply and translate them accurately. Subject matter expertise distinguishes professionalism from amateur work. A strategic use of resources, expert translators know they cannot rely solely on memory or intuitions. They skillfully use dictionaries, glossaries, parallel texts, subject matter experts and the translation tools to enhance accuracy and efficiency rather than seeing resources uh, consultation as weakness. They recognize it as professionalism, prioritizing quality over ego. Translation is not a matter of words only, it's a matter of making intelligible a whole culture. Anthony Burgess. These qualities develop over time through deliberate practice, study, and reflection. As you work through this course, focus on cultivating these characteristics in yourself. Recognize that becoming an effective translator is a journey of continuous development rather than a destination you simply arrive at. Now let's go to the common challenges in translation. First, translation would be straightforward if languages were simple code systems where each element in one language had a direct equivalent in another. Reality is far more complex. Translators routinely encounter challenges that require creativity, cultural knowledge, and careful judgment. Understanding these challenges helps you approach translation with appropriate humility and develop strategies for addressing them. Cultural differences and untranslatability. Perhaps the most profound translation challenge stems from the fact that languages encode culture. Some concepts exist in one culture but not another, making them different and difficult or impossible to translate differently. Consider the German word uh, is Shadafaruda, a pleasure derived from another misfortune, or the Japanese Tom Komor Komorobubi, sunlight filtering through tree leaves. English lacks single word equivalents, forcing translators to use descriptions or borrow the foreign terms. Cultural references pose similar challenges. A Spanish text mentioning race, magos, Three Kings Day might need explanation. For African readers unfamiliar with this tradition, translators must decide whether to domesticate, replace with a culturally familiar equivalent, foreignize, keep the reference, and possibly add explanation or find creative middle ground solutions. Idiomatic expressions. Idioms rarely translate literally because their meaning their meanings are cultural and historical rather than compositional. Bricolage in English means good luck. In theater contexts, translating it word for word into another language would be nonsensical or alarming. Technical terminology, specialized fields use precise terminology that may not have established equivalents in another language, especially for cutting edge concepts. Translators must research extensively, consult experts, and sometimes create or standardize new terms in the target language. Tune and register languages differ in how they mark formality, politeness, and the social relationships. Japanese has elaborate honorific systems. English relies more on word choice and indirectness. Maintaining appropriate tune across the languages requires cultural and pragmatic sensitivity, not just linguistic knowledge. Style and voice, translating literary texts, requires capturing not just content but authorial style, sentence rhythm, imagery patterns, narrative voice. This demands literary sensitivity and creative skill beyond technical language ability. Ethical considerations. Translators face questions about their visibility and intervention. Should they correct errors in the source text, add explanatory notes, adapt culturally sensitive content? These decisions involve ethical judgment about the translator's role and responsibility to various stakeholders. A challenge as opportunity rather than seeing the challenges as obstacles, view them as opportunities for creative problem solving. The most rewarding aspect of translation is finding elegant solutions to seemingly impossible problems. Each challenge you overcome strengthens your skills and it deepens your understanding of how languages and the cultures work. Recognizing these challenges prepares you to approach translation with appropriate care and creativity. Solutions often requires research, consultation, and multiple revision passes. Do not expect perfection in your first draft. Translation is inherently a process of problem solving that unfolds over time. So we'll stop here and we'll continue, inshallah, tomorrow. Next session, translation methods and strategies. Until next time, tata for now.